There. All right, I think everybody looks like they're pretty much here. It's 8 o'clock. I will call the February 9th transit meeting to order. All members are present, except for Richard Johnson and Robin Sweeney at this time. People keep clicking in here. Approval of minutes for the January 2nd meeting.
I would move to approve as presented.
Is there a second? Joe, second it. Any discussion?
I got one. Chairman Randy Prochnow was not present, so he couldn't have declared the meeting adjourned. I didn't notice that. So.
Oh shoot, where did that minutes go?
Oh, yep. Sorry about that.
Any other corrections or additions? All right, all those approved? Aye.
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 Anybody not? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Public hearing none. Items chair none. Staff reports on to Austin.
Right. Morning, everybody. So this month, since I put together an annual report packet for the county board, figured it'd be a good thing just to go through that as we look everything on a year level instead of just a month by month level. So we'll just go through that, and then we will have a consideration for action to be taken by the commission. So we can go through discussion on the carry forwards for 2022. And then at the end, I also will have a Phoenix bus, electric bus update from that I got at about 9 o'clock last night. So perfect timing on that. All right. If I could share my screen. Okay. Dunn County Transit 2021 annual report. I'll just take all these at a high level here. But 2021, just building on the adversities that we were faced in 2020, still impacting ridership in 2021. How we emerged from that, we did more with less and continue becoming more efficient. In previous years through 2021, the groundwork was made for 2 fully electric buses to arrive to Dunn County Transit by spring of 2022 now. In 21, we continued to reduce paper usage immensely by going to electronic tally system, electronic time cards, all routes now on eco-lane dispatching software, etc. We continue to move forward. Looking at the stout ridership for 21 as a whole compared to 2020 as a whole. If we look at when stout went out of session, completely virtual in Q2 of 2020, down to 0 ridership. And then for the 2020 to 2021 school year, they were 50-50, half virtual, half in-person classes. As you see with Q3 of 2020, Q4, and then Q1 and Q2 as well. If we look at this last October through December, it's sitting right up there with pre-COVID numbers. So it's the other day we had our first 1,000 rider day between all routes, and 2 Wednesdays in a row we had over 1,000 people between all routes riding our buses in the past 2 weeks. Stout AM and Stout PM ridership. Stout at the, AM at the top, PM at the bottom. Just to overview, if you're looking at this last fall, 2020 is the second one in, 21 is the far left. It's about 75% of the way there. And then Stout PM, it's creeping up to being right where it needs to be with some of our best years to date numbers on that. Doorstop and Red Cedar ridership. Going from 2020 to 2021, we're sitting at about 30% gain on every quarter since March of 2020. So that's great to see. Community route. 2021 community route was up 23 or so % compared to 2020. With the installation of the 9 bus shelters in the fall of 2020, bus stop locations this past year have been utilized better, with the community having a better understanding of where stops are and how the community route works. The community route going to the new and improved 1-hour route, and it becoming free fare on June 1st of 21. Becoming free fare to community members has improved ridership greatly as well. Just a look back on our old route down below compared to the new route up here. A lot easier to follow. And this is the route that we put into service on June 1st of 21. And we've gotten some great feedback on it. What we did in summer 21, before only the Stout route and the community route buses were on the tracking app. Now anybody on any route, any bus they ride, all of the routes are on this, as well as we are able to dig in and see how fast the bus is going, if it's on the correct route. So a lot better reporting as well on the private end of things, so we can see from the office how the bus is doing and keeping up to its scheduled stops. We've heard everything on these electric buses for a long time here. This just goes through for the county board timeline of it, and everything getting pushed back to Q1 or Q2 of 22, hopefully, and then it goes through the configuration of what it looks like inside. In 21, we also had our 5-year compliance site review that was satisfactorily completed by us and taken care of. Sling driver scheduling app, we added this this last spring of 21. Easy to track hours that everybody has, making sure they're staying where they need to be, getting enough, as well as the driver gets a text or an email every morning before their shift. Makes it so we don't have call-ins or people coming in late. Helps out a little bit with that as well. Previous to 21, we only had 2 routes in Eco Lane. Our dispatching software, that was the Doorstop and Red Cedar route. And then we're doing paper tallies on the community and Stout route. And with the volume riders that we get, there's a lot of opportunity for error with paper tallies. And you have to physically put them into a software, Excel or anything else to count them anyways. So this has made it so we every quarter going through stuff. This has saved about 40 hours every quarter of work for myself or John, the operations guy here. So now at the end of the day, or even instantaneously, I can see, oh, there's been 150 riders on the stout route this morning. Benefits, better track and accuracy, daily checks against the driver's till. And every route is now on the same platform, reducing mistakes on paper spreadsheets, and it can be verified against the pre and post trip. We added the digital pre and post trip in 21, less labor intense. Auto feeds a spreadsheet for upcoming oil changes. It flags it when it's 500 miles or so out from its next oil change. And this helps with more attention to detail on pre-trips. I added 2 quarts of antifreeze to my bus yesterday. It automatically sends an email out when we hit submit on this pre-trip. So we have a little bit better understanding with a fleet of 8, what buses are having issues and how urgent they are. LCD monitors now on the fleet. We put these in last summer as well. This goes through everything from the legal requirements we need to have presented on the buses. And over winter break, we teamed up with the Stout SSA group and went through a streamlined way of getting all of their upcoming events dumped into a Google Drive of ours that we can easily and efficiently add and remove their upcoming event slideshows on our buses. So that went into effect yesterday. And then on the community route, anything that's upcoming in the community, we'll add that to the community bus as well. Around the shop in 21, with what we saved by doing more things ourselves, whatever we could, it allowed for us to get fleet tires in bulk. We got a tire changer and balancer and some new impact wrenches and batteries for those. In 2021, the savings that we had for our contractual budget, we added some pretty outdated, I think they were 4 or 5-year-old tablets, larger, easier to read for everything being digital based now for our dispatching software, better battery life, and then a better signal. A lot of times it would drop around the campus library in Jarvis Hall because it's in such a hole there with some tall buildings around it. We're having less issues now than we did before. And then an improved dispatcher station with 3 monitors, current schedule, rider search, and then the bus assignment GPS map. And then we ended the year last year with the Winter Days Parade. First time the bus has been in there for a little while. And that was awesome to be in the community event. And then in 2021, a few team updates. All employees were CPR and AED certified of beginning of August. And the goal was monthly team meetings and then switching from paper to electronic time cards, which we did. And that was pretty seamless there. Any questions on the annual report? Okay.
I have a couple, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Austin, do you have AEDs on the buses or on select buses?
No, we are. I would like to get at least one on the doorstop bus.
Yeah.
And I think that will be one of our goals for this year. It's good to be trained, but if you don't have the tools, the training's only so good. But yeah, that's a great point.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly startup costs and ongoing costs with it, but well, yeah, they are lifesavers. So
yeah, you can get refurbished ones pretty reasonable.
excellent report, Austin. I really appreciate it, and it really shows a lot of progress through the transit throughout some really challenging times. But at the same time, you've made some really great improvements, and I don't think I heard once about any past year audits or budgets and stuff like that. So that's refreshing. I yield.
Next, before we get into the carry forwards, I just like to go through. If you look on the right side here, your cameras might be covering it, but last time we got an email from Thomas was October. Thomas Allen is the VP of sales at Phoenix Bus. Last night I got an email from him with Steve Hirschfeld of WisDOT CC'd on it, and then the crew from Phoenix Bus gave us an update of the level 3 charger. That's the smaller one. We had to get it outsourced somewhere else because the one that they originally sold us was discontinued. And he is saying that it's arriving on February 20th and they just have to test it before they ship. And the 50 kilowatt charger, he was asking if we received it. This was something that was supposed to be shipped out in September, and we still haven't seen it. So if it gets to the highway department, let us know. But as of now, it's nowhere to be seen yet. But it is bought and paid for. So there's that. And I responded because he didn't say in that original email anything about the buses. So I asked about any update on the timeline for the 2 electric buses. And he said, same game plan. We have the vehicles ordered and we will try and electrify them so they're ready to deliver the moment we get them Altoona test score completed. The test vehicle is in final pre-testing. We should have it shipped this month. I know with COVID and Altoona closing, we have faced major delays, but the buzz here at Phoenix Motor Cars is so high, about to make history with the first fully electric cutaway being dropped off there for testing. Test duration depends on weather, but he will keep us in the loop. And thank you for being patient. That's what Thomas gave for an update for us. I will touch base with Steve Hirschfeld, the WisDOT director, this week in our own phone call or email thread, and just touching base with him. Okay, for the carry forwards, in 21, the capital budget was $750,000. The 2 buses that we purchased are at the top here, and their down payments are below, just on 2 different purchase orders. That totals the $466,892, and the $48,000 is for the 2 charging stations. That was budgeted for and consumed in 21, with an available amount of $234 left. Now, with upcoming in 22, we have this solar grant for 160, as well as we were awarded those 3rd/4th electric buses. But with how slow the process has been for these, it's hard to know. The plan would be that 3rd electric bus is around 230, or that solar grant is not far from that either. That grant is for 160, reimbursement from WisDOT. So the few moving parts that we have here, that solar grant got pushed, so the date is available until September of 23. As we are also awarded those other 2 buses that I think is dated December of 22. So we have options with them, but with the supply chain issues that we're seeing, that's where we're at with this. The other thing, these were budgeted for and paid for, but state reimbursement obviously didn't happen in 21 either, because we did not receive these yet. That's where we are at, and with the carry forward to 234. That's what I have on 2022 carry forwards. Okay.
So there's some questions on that. So what do we need to do? Just approve.
Disapprove the carry forward as Austin has explained it.
Okay, so we need a motion for the carryover, basically.
I would move that.
Make
we
a
approve the
motion that we carry forward. I'll second Kelly's.
Kelly made the motion, Chuck seconded it. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Any other discussion? Any other questions? If not, I guess we can adjourn the transit meeting and on to the highway with Kelly.
All righty, I'm just pulling up my agenda here.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. We have a lot of ground to cover today. And a lot of it is going to take, I think, a fair amount of time. So I'm going to try and keep us moving right along. And just a second. And if we go as long as we think, I think we might, I may give us a 5 or 10 minute break here a little bit further out. So with that said, I'm going to call us to order. Call the roll. Everybody is here, plus a number of staff. Chair Bartlett, our county manager, corporation counsel, etc. And I will move on to approval of the minutes.
Move we approve, Kelly.
Thank you, Brian. Motion by Supervisor Johnson,
Seconded.
second by Supervisor Maves. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Same sign. Okay, public comment. Dustin, Kristen, did either of you receive any public comment?
I did not.
Great, thank you. All right, no items placed at the request of the chair. Let's move right into staff reports. Dustin?
Perfect. I'll try to get through the meat and potatoes as quickly as possible so we can get on to the good stuff at the end here. The highway operations and shop operations, obviously we continue to do a lot of brushing, pothole patching. We are doing some obviously repairs in the shop. We have done some little upgrades, doing some painting inside the building, looking at trying to improve some lighting in our shop, talking with facilities on that. The projects, our County Trunk B project still continues. We're at about 60% plans on that. Waiting to try to get to that 90% plan set so we can start getting some real estate purchased for that project. It is still on schedule to complete that in 2023. Regarding any bridges, we did have a change management request for our County Road Q bridge just north of Knapp due to the increased cost that came in when the project got let. That was approved by the DOT, so there is additional funding that was approved on that end. That's kind of the everyday operations that's going on currently at Highway. I'll just kind of, any questions before I go on to the financials? Okay. Going into the financials, obviously we have the year-end financial report that finance put together. We are still obviously projected with a budget deficit at Highway. I will basically say that the one big reason is the budget error we had for a revenue source. Obviously that was a huge overtaking to try to overcome. And unfortunately we were not aware of that situation until towards the middle of the year. So like I said, that's kind of what we're leaning on here. Going forward, we made those corrections. And like I said, we can go forward on that. Any questions regarding the financials?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, we'll go into Dan put together the spreadsheets with our plow trucks, and in particular the repair costs. And I can probably show you that. I don't know if everybody can see my screen or not.
Not just yet.
Bear with me, I got multiple screens.
There you go.
So this is the spreadsheet that Dan put together. I know a lot of you are familiar with this, what was done from previous. Dan did update it with our current fleet. Obviously, this is our single axle trucks. And as you can see, we have a very outdated fleet on that. Our average truck age here in our single axles is 17 years old, and average 242,000 miles on them. As you can see, the costs to repair this equipment exponentially increases over time. More than doubles on average, I would say. It doubles in cost to try to keep these trucks running after that fifth year. So like I said, we have 12 of those single axle trucks, and just so you understand, like these 153s and 145s, why the costs are lower after year 6. These are our crash barrier trucks that we've utilized old plow trucks to utilize these crash trucks. So they're not used on an everyday basis. So that's our single axles. These are our tandem axle trucks, which are a little bit newer, obviously, but just reiterate that over time, the costs exponentially go up to keep these trucks running. Like I said, the trucks are newer. They're 6 years old on average, with 70,000 miles on them. But like I said, the trucks do go, repair costs go up. Dan did note that the one cost, that 148, why it was so expensive, was due to an interstate crash that we had with that truck, and additional repair costs. So that's why that one's kind of skewed. And then this is our tri-axle trucks. And as you can see, we have newer fleet of trucks here. We have 16 of these trucks and on average are 2015, 7 years old. But these do put a lot of miles on. These are trucks that we use all winter and all summer. They are plow trucks in the winter and our haul trucks in the summertime. So we do put quite a few miles on these very quickly. And as you can see, the repair costs are still the same. We double the cost after year 5 to maintain these. The older trucks there that we've kind of held on to are the pre-emission trucks, those 163 through 166. Like I said, those are our pre-emission trucks that seem to have a little less repair cost, but they still cost money. And this is our new quad fleet that we've had for 2 years now. As you can see, the repair costs are very, very minimal. These traditionally are trucks that we run in the summertime. They are not utilized for plow trucks. They're just haul trucks in the summer. But we've had great success with newer equipment being replaced in a timely manner where we have very little repair costs, downtime. Before we have trucks that are in here constantly when we're paving that have repairs. And this last year, I don't think we had a truck down when we were paving. Maybe some little minor issues, but other than that, I didn't put on there. I apologize. I didn't have on the spreadsheet what it showed our old quad fleet. What the costs were, but it was dramatically increased, obviously, after year 5. So, I mean, like I said, that's just reiterates that we need to kind of get this fleet rolled out in a quicker schedule because the repair costs are so great after that year 5. It's unfortunately, we're putting more money into these trucks that don't have the value. So like I said, this shows that. I guess what we were looking at is, so we have 45 trucks. If you count all these trucks, we have 45 fleet trucks that plow and haul all year round. Just to maintain the age in what we have in a 10-year lifespan, and that's a typical max that you want to see is a 10-year lifespan. If we replace 4 to 5 trucks a year, that's just to maintain the fleet we have age-wise. So like I said, that's what we should at least be doing at a minimum. To try to keep up with this lesser cost to repair, less downtime. Like I said, when we pave, it's all trucks on deck. When we're paving, we want every truck we can get. So it makes a dramatic change if we have 3 or 4 trucks down. So I just wanted you to be aware. I don't know if Dan, if you have anything that you want to add to this.
Can you hear me, Dustin?
Yes.
Okay. No, not really, I guess, other than, pretty much you covered it. We started out here on our triaxles. We've got a pretty good base on them here right now. And if we don't keep up with purchasing new trucks, we're going to lose that, which is really going to cost a whole lot more money. Most of our tries are, 2017 on up, which is good. They're only, 5 years old. Our tandem fleet right now is really aging, where we need to, start removing some of those, where the 13s, 14s, they're right there getting close to over that age, that we like to see them. And we do have a lot more problems with them. I mean, you're looking at, from the first to the 5th year at the 42,000, and then from the 6th to 11th year is 86,000, and that's separate costs. So there's from the first year to the 11th year, you're looking at 128,000, which is half of the cost of the truck, or probably a little bit even more than half of the cost of the truck. So, if we can purchase new ones, we don't have the downtime, the breakdowns, and another part of it, I guess, would be the what the truck is worth as an asset. The sooner we get them traded off or sold, they're worth more money that we can apply to the new ones. So if we save until they're 20 years old, they're not worth anything, and then we lose all the equity, in the truck. So I guess that's what we're asking. I think it benefits and is, it's hard to get numbers, but I'm sure it's more cost effective to keep the trucks, in a newer fleet. So that's about all I guess I've got. You guys, any questions or concerns?
I can't see any of you, so go ahead and speak up if you've got questions. Dave?
I know you probably don't have these figures, but from the years 1 through 5 and then to years 6 through 11, you're almost doubling the expense of keeping that truck going. I guess I know that it's going to cost more going forward because now, from the 11th year on, you're going to start having some major breakdowns instead of just a lot of the other maintenance. But maybe you could talk about that, Dan, that, once a truck gets between that 10 and 20 year mark, these prices are just going to go up, I would assume.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you can see it pretty much, there's a pattern on all of them, from the 1st to the 5th year on the expense, and then you go to the 6th or the 10th or 11th year, and it's pretty much all the same. It's double, on the expense. And then, yeah, you get past if you got to keep them, if we can only purchase 2 trucks a year, we're looking at a 20-year turnaround, and the cost of maintaining them then are, way up and above what the truck is worth. And that's, kind of an issue. And also right now to get a new one is really tough. We talked to the salesman and he's looking at the spring of, if we ordered it right now, we're looking at the spring of 2023, and looking at, as far as receiving the truck with the plow equipment on it, we're probably looking at the end of 2023 and almost 2024. In fact, one of them we haven't gotten done yet, and we've ordered that over a year ago. So it's something we really have to look ahead here. The longer that we wait and don't order any, it's just going to take that much longer. We don't have to pay for the trucks until we receive them. So even if we ordered them now, we don't have to pay for them if they did come in until the spring of 23. So that would be in the next year's budget. But then also it lets us, it's 2 years basically before we get any more new trucks, which makes it harder, so just to kind of give you, an update on that. And parts are really getting hard to get to, so the longer we, hang on to the older stuff, it's costly, for the parts too, for the downtime. But yeah, I guess that's about it. Thanks, Dave.
Anyone else?
Anyone else? Yeah. A new tandem truck right now is running just under $250,000, and our budget, really hasn't increased over the past, well, since I started here, over the past 10 years. It's kind of stayed around that $1 million mark, but the trucks have almost doubled since then, with all the plow equipment and stuff, and it's difficult, and I know it's difficult, but I don't know what we're going to do. I mean, if we don't replace them, you know, in a timely manner, we're going to be in trouble here eventually, you know. So
Yep.
that's what we're struggling with.
Okay.
Kelly?
Yeah, Brian.
Well, I'm just wondering, you know, I'm all for 4 or 5 trucks a year, but the problem is it's got to be paid for. And do you guys have a plan in the budget or looking forward how to do that, Dustin? I mean, I agree with you, but it's got to be paid for.
I mean, currently, I mean, that'd be something we'd have to discuss with finance and admin on just trying to come up with a long-term plan. And obviously we've had started that discussion. Everybody's aware it needs to happen, but where's the funding source coming from? Like I said, that's a discussion we're going to have.
Yeah, I think that the committee is broadly in support of the idea of new trucks. We all see the urgency. It's just going to be real tough lift to get the financing and make it work. Dave, did you have a?
Well, we've talked about this a little bit, and Dustin and I have talked about it, or I've asked questions. And I think going forward, he's going to try to put the revenue from the machinery use that he gets from the state into the fund for machinery. That's the way it had been done years ago, and I don't know when we went away from that, but we evidently did. So long term, I think we'll build that fund back up and be able to start buying equipment. But short term, the next couple years or so, it's going to take a while to build that fund up. And I guess I would say that we should try to use some of our ARPA money for that. If we don't buy anything for, say we decide to go 2 years without buying, and then it takes another year to get this stuff after we've decided we have enough money to buy. These numbers are going to change dramatically as far as I'm concerned on the trucks that are 11 years old, and they're going to be older then. And instead of clutches, brakes, maybe a rear end or two or whatever, you're going to have engines, transmissions, differentials, and that stuff adds up quick.
Yep.
So, that, I guess, when you ask how we're going to fund it, that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking about that some with actions for the committee with the ARPA funding. So I think we'll hold that discussion until then. Probably should move on here, because like I said, we've got a big agenda, and we'll definitely be talking about the funding later. So unless anyone else has something urgent to add, I would suggest we move on to the bipartisan infrastructure bill.
We'll move into that. So the DOT just released a memo. Basically, the federal government has given the state of Wisconsin, let's say, billions of dollars that they can spread out over the next 5 years for transportation use. The DOT has elected to put some of that money into local transportation, including towns, counties, cities, all that. The one thing is they have fiscal year 2022 dollars that they need to utilize. With that being said, they are looking at construction projects that can be bid in 2022 and built in 2023. They're looking for projects that are simple. Pulverize and repave projects, mill and overlay projects, pavement replacement projects, just something simple that's not going to need a full-blown drawn-out plan where you got to start reinventing the wheel. That's what they're looking at for in 2022. So they've basically sent out the application processes for this. That is actually just started here in January with a due date of April to come up with some projects. So there's not a whole lot of turnaround here to try to get something moving. I feel this is an 80-20 split. So 80% federally state funding and 20% local match. The only caveat to the 2022 fiscal year is the design or engineering that would go into this project would be local funds 100%. There would be no match on that. Obviously, Dunn County has a long list of roads that are deteriorated, that need help, need fixing. Obviously, it impacts our 2023 budget potentially. If we were to go after this 2022 dollars and be awarded a project. Like I said, there's a lot of lists of roads that we could just grind and relay. But obviously there is a cost to do this. So like I said, if we have $1 million job, we have to pay $200,000 of it. It's, to me, is a no-brainer, but it does impact what we would be doing potentially in 2023. Long-term, I definitely want to put applications out here long-term where if we can construct something in 2024, 2025, that's something I'm definitely going to do once that application process starts here in February, the end of February. So there's a lot going on. I guess I wanted to discuss it with you as a committee to see if that's something we want to partake, at least trying to put some type of application out for a fiscal year 2022 dollars with a construction project happening in 2023. Obviously, there might be some jockeying of numbers that we may have to do budget wise to do this in 2023. I just wanted to see what your take is on it. If that's something that you feel that we should proceed with to try to do, or if we just say, nope, we're not going to do it, or we'll just worry about going forward. So that's why I just wanted to present to you this bipartisan infrastructure law. Just give you a little bit of an update on what it is. Like I said, it's traditionally it's our STP program, which is a state funded program. That is an 80-20. So they're just putting more money into that program. So we do have quite a few projects that are currently in that program. Our County Road B project is in that program. Our County Road H project is in that program. So it is all contracted work. We do not do the work in-house. It's all bid through the DOT's system and let to a contractor. So like I said, I can come up with a long list of roads that we can put this money towards. It's just, it may affect our 2023 budget where we may have to come up with that money, as well as 2022 budget to get some engineering design. And what I say for engineering design is just, it would be a basic plan set, just kind of like an aerial photo of a plan with an alignment, cross sections, something very simple, just that a contractor can look at. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of added cost when it comes to the engineering of it. But I don't have those numbers in front of me because I haven't submitted any RFP requests for that. So.
Okay. Thoughts and questions? My sense of it is this is a a once in a generation or a once in a lifetime opportunity for some funding. And I would love to see us be able to grab onto some of that. Anyone else? Joe, then Brian.
I was wondering, does this project cover chip sealing too? That'd be a pretty simple thing to get put together, wouldn't it?
It would. The one thing I would say to that is I wouldn't lean towards going to a chip seal because we can do that in-house at a lesser cost than what a contractor can do.
Ryan?
Yeah, I'm all for it. Go after them, the monies, 80-20. I realize it's hard to swallow, but I've always been in favor of a resurface than a reconstruct anyway, but that's just my thoughts. So I don't realize it don't last as long, but we can get over more, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, this could be overlays as well. I mean, it can just be any type of surface treatment.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Obviously we have the roads that need it, and I say we need to do what we need to do to get the money.
Randy, you had a.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it, obviously, too, but is there anything in 2023 that's not an 80-20 that we could downsize to get the money for it, or where are we at on the budget as far as that goes?
So the projects that we have currently scheduled for 2023 are probably going to need a little bit more structural improvements, safety improvements, which would kind of fall out of this fiscal year 2022 approach by the DOT. So like I said, they want something that's basic. And currently what our 2023 schedule is those roads are not basic. It's not just putting a surface treatment on. Just like County Road Z down by O'Galley. I don't know if you're all familiar with that. It needs more work than just grind and relay. So it's something we can look into, but like I said, I don't know if we would be able to do that in 2023.
Dave, you want to add anything, or?
Well, my thoughts were kind of like Brian. I realize that some of these roads may need a little bit more, but the bottom line is if you pulverize it and repave it and add gravel where you really need to, it might fall under this, and we might be able to do a lot more miles that year than if we stick to our guns and do the major work like in 2023, like the road you just said. I know that one's really bad, but so that might not fall into that you'd be able to, but some of them, if you can take advantage of this 80-20 money and put new payment down on that road, even if you don't redo it, reconstruct it completely, like would be the best way to do it. I think that would be an advantage to the county.
Yeah, I think there are places where doing it the best way will get us 25, 30 years, but if we can buy ourselves 15, a slightly shorter term with money that we would not otherwise have available, that's got some appeal to it. Paul, I see you have turned your camera on. I would guess that you have some things to add.
Just a question. I agree with everybody, these opportunities to get 80% of these projects paid for by the state are ones that we need to do if we can. The uncomfortable question is, where does the 20% come from? Dustin, I assume you don't have in your budget the 20% for engineering or any other part. Is that correct?
Correct. There was no engineering set aside for this.
So it begs the question, if we have to pay 20%, what funding source are we using to pay for it? And it's an imminent question, because if this committee is going to instruct Dustin to go ahead, he'll send out RFPs. It's saying we need to devote a certain amount of Dustin's time and resources just to sending out and putting together those applications. So we do, I think this committee does need to have some notion, some idea of where the 20% match is coming from.
Yep, I think that's going to be another place where the ARPA discussion that we're going to have a little later in the meeting will be relevant. And honestly, this is one of the places, and I hate to say it, but this is one of the places, given the historically low interest rates, where borrowing might make sense.
And I just want to reiterate, this is not a guarantee. So it's an application process that we could potentially be awarded projects. It's not a guarantee.
Brian?
Dustin, right off the top of your head, do you know how many miles of reconstruct you're going to plan on doing in 22?
We
just give or take.
Right behind me. So approximately 10 miles
of reconstruct.
And I would not consider it reconstruct. What I consider it is a reconditioning.
Okay.
So reconstruct is if we're changing alignments, doing all that stuff.
Okay.
Which we're basically doing a glorified pulverize and repave, where we're adding base, widening shoulders. That's more of a reconditioning. So it has a little bit lesser cost than if we're totally rebuilding the road off the existing alignments and stuff. So we do about approximately 10 miles per year is what we're averaging currently.
Right.
And that's all we have budget wise. All of our construction budget numbers go to that, about 10 miles per year.
And I suppose out of them 10 miles, it would be foolish just to resurface half of them in your mind.
We could possibly do that, but like I said, the ones we're reconditioning have increased structural needs that we need to address. So like I said, we're sticking all of our money into dilapidated roads that are just gone. That's the unfortunate thing, is we can't really just grind and relay them. Maybe if we get caught up, there's a possibility we could do that, but currently the situation we are in, it's not feasible.
So the roads that qualify under this grant for this next year, you said are grind and repave. Do you have to hire an engineering firm to do a grind and repave? I mean, that's pretty simple.
Honestly, if the DOT was not involved, we would not have to have an engineer create a plan for it. Since the DOT is involved, they require a plan set, so a contractor can build it according to plan.
So you'd have to go out and hire an engineer to do this, or can you do it? Okay, all right.
Yeah, and like I said, in fiscal year 2022, the engineering would be 100% local. Going forward, it would be an 80-20 match for design.
Okay.
So the big thing is if we want to try to get those 2022 funds or not, that it would be, like I said, constructed in 23. So the project would be bid through the DOT system here in October of this year to be constructed in 23.
Okay, it looks like we've got a pretty clear consensus of the committee to at least, look at what projects would fall under that, at least try and then, bring those back to us and see if we can make it work. And we'll have the funding discussion to some extent here with actions to be taken by the committee under the ARPA discussion, and then probably we should have this on the agenda for next time for funding more broadly. If anyone has anything else they want to add to that, now's the time. Otherwise, like I said, we've got a lot of ground to cover. Brian?
Yeah, do you have enough time if you wait another month, Dustin, to get this taken care of, or?
Honestly, we would have to act on it right away. That's the unfortunate thing. It's from start to finish. If we would hire an engineering firm, it takes approximately about 4 to 5 months. And these applications are going to be required to be, projects will be approved in May of this year from the DOT level. And that's the unfortunate thing, is we'd almost have to hire a firm, an engineering firm, to start this process, but may not necessarily get the project. That's the unfortunate thing. So that's where I want to let you know that could be an issue. We could be sticking $50,000 to $100,000 into engineering and may not even get awarded the project. The DOT, like I said, is they're looking for projects that are just simple, aren't going to need a lot of engineering, or a plan set that's already done, which we don't have. Like I said, that's the issue, is coming up with the engineering costs for this year.
Okay, so from a practical meeting sense, looking at our agenda, I think we could potentially authorize. I think we would have to consider a special meeting to specifically authorize any of that. So if you think you can find a couple of those projects that look likely and want to bring it back to the committee, we could certainly have a special meeting, but I don't think we can, certainly without something specifically identified, we can't authorize it with this meeting. Paul, you look like you're.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through for the committee timelines.
Yeah.
So CR&T earlier this week forwarded a recommendation to executive for use of ARPA funds for rural broadband matching funds. And the county board, that goes to executive and if, today. And if executive approves that, it goes in front of the county board in February. I'm wondering, Dustin, what do you see as the latest that the county board could act and still make the deadline for the applications? And the reason I'm asking is we won't make it. The only way I see this happening is with ARPA funds or a budget adjustment. And both of those require executive and county board action. So a special meeting of this committee is certainly possible. But unless we do a special meeting of those other two, we're still on the same schedule where March 16 would be the next date that the county board could take action, either on an ARPA request or a budget adjustment request. So Dustin, does that, would a March 16 decision be in time for us to go after these 22 funds?
Yes.
Okay. If that's the case, if we can, then there would be a special meeting late in February would give it a little bit more time. At the bare minimum, the regular schedule of meetings would have this committee meeting on March 9 and executive on March 9. We could certainly do that if you need more time, and simply have a placeholder on executive committee's agenda to respond to any recommendation from the highway committee, whether it's ARPA or a budget adjustment related to this request. A special meeting, however, if we could do one on, say, February 23rd, or even March 2nd would give us a little bit more time to massage something for presentation to executive and county board.
Yeah, that was, in terms of timeline, I was thinking something, it was gonna have to be something like that, given the. So broadly from the committee, do we want to go ahead and try and make that attempt?
I do.
Yeah, it looks like the consensus of the committee, so. Dustin, if you're willing to try and meet that timeline.
I'll do everything I can.
Get an engineer on speed dial as soon as it's.
Plenty of
So
them.
yeah, let us know if and when we'll need to do a special meeting, and we will try to do that. Otherwise, we'll try and get it in at the on the shorter regular meeting schedule.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to be the agenda police again here and say that now that we've got a plan for that, we should probably push along to the next item.
Okay, so next item on the agenda is the Pottersfield Cemetery. I don't know if this has ever been brought up in discussion from previous with the committee.
I don't think so, at least not in the 12 years I've been on this committee.
Okay, well, we'll start now. So obviously the Dunn County Highway Department property houses a cemetery, which is called Potter's Cemetery. It was from the old healthcare facility days for individuals that didn't have family or that got buried on this site. So it is an area that was neglected for years. A group of individuals have basically maintained it. They've come in and done a lot of research on it. They are in the process, I believe, of trying to do some imaging to find the grave sites exactly, who the individuals are, have gravestone markings and everything. The major issue is accessibility to this cemetery. Obviously, the only way in is through our shop yard. We do have individuals that they do little group outings. During Memorial Weekend, they do have a veterans service here at the cemetery. It's usually on weekends, obviously, when Dunn County staff are not present. So we do have the capabilities of opening the gates up remotely now. But it is a liability factor as well of having individuals come in and out to see this cemetery during the day, during normal working hours. We do have obviously equipment running around here in their yard. And then we had another wrinkle in the mix there with individuals and students and everything else coming into our shop. The group has actually got, I'll retract. So there was discussion in the past years about adding a fence where they could have a separate entrance coming into this. So basically a fence within our fence, with a gate coming out from the town road, which is considered 574th Avenue, right out there by 12 and 574th, where the old rest area was at one point in time. There is a cost to that, obviously. The group has come up with grant funding to purchase the materials, the fencing materials to do this. The cost is more than what their grant is. So they have a $19,000 grant and donations that they can utilize towards this project. I just recently got estimates to put fencing up. And I can kind of share my screen here to just kind of show you what's going on here. But so this was kind of the proposed scenario to install a gate within our fence fence everything off, and then have a gate where individuals can access it without Dunn County staff being present or having an open gates or anything like that. The fencing costs, we did get three estimates from 3 contractors. The lowest came in at $23,000 or $24,000, upwards of $45,000 to complete this. Obviously, the group only has $19,000 of grant money to spend. They have expressed that they could probably generate more money through donations to pay for the fence. There is added costs to build an entrance, to cut trees, to put gravel down. A quick number, I would estimate approximately $20,000 to $30,000 to do that. Additionally, into the gate, into the fencing. This group is pushing. They're pushing that this gets done. Like I said, before this group came in, it was neglected. We mowed it maybe once a year, and that was it. Dunn County staff did that. I guess I just wanted to present that to the committee because I didn't know if this was ever presented to you about the possibility of doing this. Maybe adding some funding to it, or we don't do anything and just proceed as such on opening up the gate when they want to do any services, have any type of class. We've had groups of students that want to come in, have a history lesson of it. And it's difficult because based on kind of a liability factor of coming through our yard. So like I said, I wanted to present that to you. I want to know your approach on how you would like to proceed with this, if that's something that we're okay with kind of doing, or if we want to look at the possibility of adding some funding into this going forward, not necessarily, I would say this year, but maybe next year where we could budget for something like this. But there is a 3-year grant timeline to utilize the funds that they have. And this would be year 2 in 2022. So we would have to pretty much get this accomplished next year at a minimum. Otherwise they lose their funding source.
Thoughts or questions, folks? Chuck, then Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where they're coming from, but I think they need to come up with more money first. I mean, and I would say next year, maybe budget something for it, because I understand, the reasoning, but I think they need to come up with more money and give us an extra year to budget, because we don't have the money this year to work towards it. That's what I think.
Brian?
I agree with Chuck. As far as I'm concerned, let them have at it if they get the money.
Anybody else? Yeah, I guess my sense of it would be, I would certainly be willing to see us use at least a small amount of county resources to help them out, but given our budget situation, we're not really in a position to do that. If they can if they can come up with the funding, and we can help them out a little bit, that would be great. But it's really a situation where we're flailing for budget anyway. And I would love to see them have that access, and that would be ideal for liability purposes if they didn't have to go through the yard. So I guess my thought is certainly explore it further, but does that sound generally okay to people?
Yeah, and I guess what I was looking at is as a minimum possibly is if they purchase the fence this year, we leave it as such. We don't do anything going forward. We may have to cut some trees. That's about it. We would have to do this year. But then maybe look at the possibility of them getting some funding for adding some gravel base or adding an entrance to it. Their big concern, and I guess I have a concern too, is the costs are going up exponentially with this fencing material. Just last year to this year, it's gone up $6,000 for this. So that's kind of what they were looking at, the possibility of getting this fencing purchased this year through them, through their grant, and then we put everything kind of on hold until then. Like I said, we would have some costs of cutting some trees down at this point in time, but that's about all we would have in it. Which we should be able to cut those trees down in half a day's time, unfortunately. So
yeah, I certainly don't have any objections to that at this point, Dave.
I totally agree. We should, probably budget for next year. But my question is, I didn't quite understand the fence within the fence. We have a fence on the boundary line right now, so you would fence in a lane going back there?
correct. Yeah, we have a security fence around our entire property currently.
Right.
So we would be looking at putting a security fence within our security fence that just runs parallel so they can have access and not just run through our yard wherever they would want.
And I've seen that chain link fence, being sold used. Is there a possibility that instead of buying fence, that you just move the fence we have over far enough to give them access? And then maybe their money would be able to pay for that.
There is a possibility of that, but the only issue I would say to that is the airport property is right next door. And I believe the city would have a very large concern with people accessing along that perimeter and potentially just driving right out onto the airport. So that would be the issue that I would foresee on that. I mean, they could drive out through the field right now if they wanted to, but it almost looks like it would almost basically allow them to drive right next to the property without having some type of restriction.
So the city doesn't have a fence around their airport?
They do not on that portion right there.
Well, I think that would be up to them if they want a fence around their airport.
That's basically what we have already established is a fence.
Well, Kelly, what do you think of that?
That's the little city council light bulb going off over my head going, oh, good, a new headache.
Well, I'm just, I'm trying to see where we could save money, I guess, is all I'm thinking.
Yep, that was a thought. There's no doubt about it. We did look into that, and that was our conclusion, is it's potentially could be a security issue for adjoining property in particular the airport there.
But if you were to move that security fence to keep vehicles from driving out there, could be a 2-wire barbed wire fence. I mean, there's other things to consider. It doesn't have to be that high security fence that we would have to build to keep our property secured. I mean, I'm just throwing out options, trying to think of, because I agree there should be access there, and it would be definitely better for the county if they didn't have to come through our property. So I'm just trying to come up with something that might they might have enough money to do.
Randy, you had a,
Yeah, there's no other access point, I mean, than going through the yard right now, right?
Correct. That is the only access to the cemetery.
Instead of moving the fence, I still think you gotta put an entrance where they're thinking and forget about the extra fence, but at least they aren't going through the yard. And like I say, you can always put up a cheap fence along there so they don't go into the yard, but I think there's a lot cheaper way than building a high dollar fence all the way around this property, or inside our property, I should say. But if you concentrate on the entrance and getting entrance so they can just go straight back, I think that would be a lot more doable.
I've got a question. Who owns the land next to it?
That would be the city of Menominee.
Okay, so if we entered into a project with the city, maybe that $19,000 would go a long ways if we could build a lane in to the cemetery on the city property instead of on Dunn County's, and then we wouldn't have to move our fence and then just put up a cheap fence to keep the cars out of the airport. I'm just throwing this out for maybe the 19,000 would go a long ways to getting that done.
Brian, you looked like.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking maybe if you had some a single guardrail, some used guardrail, use it for the fence. I know they still jump over the top of it, but I don't know if they're going to want to haul some used tires, throw them in the back of their truck or something. I don't know.
Okay, so I'm going to say that we probably it's clearly the consensus that we would like to see them be able to have that access, and if that means moving fence or them putting in their fence now, or however they want to do it, that this year, and then possibly budgeting some funds next year, that looks like a consensus with this committee. But if we're gonna formally allow that, it'll have to be an action item at a later meeting. So if you can go back to them and say, yeah, we're broadly open to the idea, but these are the steps, that would be great. And then maybe move along here again to the next agenda item. But if anyone else has anything else they really want to add at this point, just as purely a discussion item, have at. But I think since it's not an agenda item, that's about as far as we can go at this point. Dave?
Well, I'd like to see maybe Dustin approach Randy Idy or something with an idea of, here's the problem. They've got $19,000. So what can we do together to get them access? I don't see any harm in at least approaching that.
Oh yeah, definitely
having that conversation.
I can definitely do that. I'll reiterate though, when you're working with the airport property, it's very, very difficult. They get a lot, they have their input too. So above and beyond what the city can do. So I will definitely approach Randy on that. At least have an option.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the heavy lifting in terms of wrangling everybody onto one page is going to have to be the people who want to get this done. But I facilitating it is certainly something we can help with.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay. Again, pushing the agenda along. Roof repair proposals.
Yeah, so the highway shop here, the roof it needs repair. It needs replacement. We do have quite a bit of leaking water damage within our facility. It was planned to try to at least replace this last year. And obviously due to budget, that got removed. We looked at trying to incorporate it this year to replace it. And due to funding issues, we do not have the money allocated to replace it this year in 2022. I've spoke with our facilities, Scott in particular, with their roof replacement that they did at the Judicial Center in 2021. There was some carryover funding that they had with that project. They had allocated, I believe it was right around that 700,000, and bids only came in at 377, I believe it was. So there is carryover funding with that. That was dollars that was borrowed. And from what I've spoken to with the finance department is that money basically should be utilized for roof repairs is how it was taken out on loan. So what I guess I'm asking is it, should we at least try to approach to try to get estimates to at least start this process to see what it's going to cost us to put a new roof on this facility? We had estimated $700,000, which I believe is greatly inflated due to what the Judicial Center's roof costs came in at. Their facility is twice the size as ours. So I do believe ours would be considerably less than that. I guess that's what I'm looking at trying to do is at least try to get estimates to see what our cost would be. I'm not saying that we have to do it if the funding's not there. But I would at least like to at least approach it that way to at least get estimates.
My sense is if you need a roof, you need a roof. But Chuck, do you have anything, having been part of the facilities process, you want to add, or Dave?
I guess I gotta think about that. I mean, yeah, if we need a roof, we need a roof, and we're going to need the bids just so we know what kind of dollars we're talking about anyway. But I know the facilities had other plans to use that money that we're going to be working towards. So I guess I got to think about that. But I would go forward and get bids because we're going to need to know what kind of money we're talking anyway.
Correct.
So,
and like I said, there's no harm in at least getting estimates and see what it's going to cost and see where we can come up with some funding for it. So.
Yeah, I agree. We need the bids, and we're gonna have to find out on that question of what that money can be used for. I know I've run into that in the past over the years when we borrowed money and had it left over that it needed to be used for a certain project because of how we stated we were borrowing the money for. So we'll have to get that question answered before facilities would be able to use it for anything else anyway. So we'll have to get that question answered, and you should get bids.
Beta, you have something to add, I believe?
Yes, I was able to, perhaps I have an answer for Mr. Bartlett. We did consult with Baker Tilly, who helped us borrow the money, and it can be used for the HVC upgrade that the facility is actually asking to use the carry forwards. So to answer that questions, yes, they can, as long as it fits the scope of maintaining a building or upgrading a building, it fits in that scope. So that would qualify the AC that they're planning on doing in 2022. So the carry forward for facilities is approximately at 387,000 that they're planning on using some of that money to upgrade that HVAC control and do some other miscellaneous parking lot projects and landscaping and so on.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
So
Yeah.
I guess, go ahead and look for, estimates, and we will discuss funding for it as we need to. But yeah, if you need a roof, you need a roof.
It always falls down to the funding source.
Yeah. Anybody else? Doesn't look like it. Okay, that gets us through the discussion phase and into consideration for actions, which I expect will take a good bit too. So starting that off, if you had a chance to look at the vouchers, does someone questions, motion to accept?
I move we approve the vouchers.
Motion, Randy, second, is that a second, Randy? Okay,
Yes.
motion by Supervisor Johnson, second by Supervisor Prochnow. Any more questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, vouchers are good. WCHA updated utility accommodation policy. Dustin, I presume this is going to be you explaining 90 pages of material to us.
I thought I'd give you a lot of good reading material there. So the Wisconsin County Highway Association had a utility accommodation policy that they want all 72 counties to kind of get on board with. It was enacted back in 2012. Dunn County at that time did have that accommodation policy in our utility permit process. Basically, it was updated from 2012 to 2022, so there was some updates. So what I'm looking at is to approve the updated policy, the new version of the utility accommodation policy.
Okay, so in terms of practicality, is this something that the committee can simply approve and we're done, or does this need to be moved forward and county board is going to have to approve it?
Nope, it just has to be done at the highway committee level.
Okay. If there any further discussion? All right, then, oh, Dave.
Oh, I didn't read every page, but I was looking for if there was something in there that would pertain to what we've done for that telecommunicated forward or whatever, where we reduced fees. And is that going to cause problems with that at all?
No, this will not affect that.
Okay, all right.
The fees are based on local fees, whatever they want to charge. This policy does not say you can only charge this much.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Doesn't look like it, then I'd be looking for a motion to approve the updated utility accommodation policy as presented. Motion by Supervisor Maves. Second by Supervisor Hartung. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Fender pit drilling and blasting proposals. Dustin?
So I sent out bid requests for drilling and blasting at our Fender pit for our lime rock base materials and shoulder materials. We are obviously running short on that, and we typically drill and blast on an every other year cycle. So that year would be this year. So I did send bid proposals out to the two companies that submit bids to us, and obviously Quick Supply and Olson Explosives. Quick Supply did come in under the costs of what Olson had prepared for us. So I did prepare a little snippet of the costs here if we were to blast basically 50,000 tons of material. That's what we typically go through on a every other year cycle of base materials. We do sell this to the towns. We utilize it on the state system as well as the county. And we make a wide variety of materials out of this blast material, from riprap to 1.25" lime rock. So the funding source, we did allocate approximately $40,000 to this, and obviously the cost came in under what was budgeted. So I guess my recommendation is if we were to go with Quick Supply to complete the blasting and drilling services at the Fender pit.
Okay. Supervisor Hartung.
Have you worked with this Quick Supply before? Or? I've never heard of it.
So Quick Supply is better known as Dole Explosives. So Dole Explosives they were bought out by Quick Supply. So we've worked with Dole Explosives quite a bit in the past. And we did hire Olson Explosives last year, so they all know what they're doing. They know how to drill and blast rock, I guess.
Supervisor Johnson.
Kelly, I'll move to go with Quick Supply for the drilling and blasting at the Fender pit.
All righty.
I'll second it.
Motion by Supervisor Johnson, second by Supervisor Prochnow. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. You are ready to go, Dustin. Get that sorted. Skid steer and mini excavator trade-in.
So we did have that discussion at the last committee meeting regarding our trade-in potential for getting new skid steers every year at a per hour dollar amount for a trade-in. We did get Tractor Central with our John Deere skid steers that we currently have to extend the $8 per hour trade-in hourly rate for the 2022 year. So we would basically get brand new skid steers and trade them in with 1-year-old skid steers with that $8 an hour rate. As noted from previous, the revenue we generate on these pieces of equipment offset the potential cost to do this. We would obviously have to come up with the upfront cost, but it would generate throughout the year the revenue source for it. We would anticipate right around that $20,000 to complete this, to trade it in. So I guess funding source is looking at our budget. There was potential duplicate labor expenditures that were noticed at the highway department, in particular with our projects. There was duplicate expenditures on there that we could utilize this extra funding to proceed with that. So like I said, we would have the money there, and it would generate the upfront cost is what we would have to be looking at to do this. It would be for a 1-year trial, and we could look at the possibility of exploring this down the road every year, or if we stop doing it. like I said, I don't necessarily like to say we're making money on it, but it's a benefit for the county to do this.
Yeah, it's certainly paid for itself the past couple of years. And it looks like with the continuation at the current price, it looks like an excellent deal. And we probably want to, probably since it's going to have to be rebid next year, because they were suggesting they might up the price. We'll have to look at it again then. But it pays for itself. It makes sense to me. Anyone else want to add further to the discussion, or did we cover it pretty thoroughly last time? Okay, then I would be looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Seconded.
Motion by Supervisor Prochnow, second by Supervisor Maves. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, motion passes. We're good to go there. Tandem axle plow truck estimates.
So Dan and I, we did send out estimate requests for 2 tandem axle plow trucks. Like I said, there's no harm in requesting this information. It's just obviously we put together that spreadsheet that shows our aging fleet. So we wanted to see what costs are coming in at, so we can kind of look at the possibility of trying to get something established for that 2023. So we did send out the proposals. We had two companies send back proposals with International and Freightliner. Those were the only 2 that submitted bids. The costs just for the truck and chassis have gone up approximately 15% from last year.
Ouch.
Costs keep going up and up and up. I just, like I said, we reiterate that it's not getting any better by any means. So looking at the truck costs, in particular, the 2 that we got, right around that $140,000 to $150,000 just for the truck and chassis. This in 2021, we were purchasing these trucks for about $120,000, $125,000. So they've gone up approximately that 15%. Like Dan and I reiterated, we would not be paying for these trucks in 2022. Right now, we would be basically giving them the okay to proceed to get these trucks started. We would not be paying until approximately 2023 at the spring of 2023 at the earliest. And that's something that, like I said, I believe we have to do it. It's just where we come up with this funding source. And like I said, that's where we'll be leading into the ARPA funding, about the possibility of utilizing some of those funds to do this. And bear with me, this is just a truck and chassis. So we would approximately have another $100,000 for each one of these trucks on top of that for all the equipment. So you'd be looking at that $250,000 for a plow truck fully equipped. And that'd be something we would not have to pay for as well until it's completed. And that would be looking at, like I say, what we're hearing is probably the fall of 2023 before we would even get these trucks fully equipped at the earliest right now.
Okay. With the indulgence of the committee, I would say we should bump any action on this back until after we've had the ARPA funding discussion. I would make this, swap G and E here in terms of the meeting. And I would also at this point, looking at what we have left to discuss, suggest now would be a great time for about a 5-minute break for everybody, because I think we're going to be here for some time after this. If there are no objections, that's up. Paul?
Just one other piece of information, perhaps for the committee to consider during your break. The discussion that you're going to have about ARPA, it's all related to the several budgetary questions, the 80-20 projects, et cetera. And if we're looking at either having a special meeting later in this month or making a decision on the 80-20 projects at the regularly scheduled March meeting, March 9. I keep looking at my calendar, by the way. That's what's going on over there. It might make sense to defer even action on this issue, because if the committee may want to consider whether or not it's wise to pull the trigger on saying, yes, go ahead and order those, because it's part of a larger, not only a larger discussion for highway, but a larger discussion for capital improvement programming. The county board is scheduled for a workshop March 26th to talk over all things capital improvement projects, plans, which would include potentially, well, it will include the equipment needs that we're talking about here. I don't know what a delay until a decision is made by the county board would do, Dustin, for your timeline for ordering these trucks. It's another month and a half delay before a decision could be made. I don't know how significant that is, but it may be wise to take a more holistic approach toward the discussion by this committee on the various budgetary issues, because we keep mentioning ARPA, we mentioning borrowing. That's going to be, that conversation is going to happen in a broader context across all the county's capital improvement needs.
Yep, that was more or less one of the reasons why I wanted to bump it back until after we had the ARPA discussion, because I suspect that even if we decide we want to use those funds, that's going to be a decision that's going to have to go to the county board anyway. But with your indulgence, I will give us all 5 minutes to get up and move around, get the circulation back, restore coffee.
Would you like me to stop the live stream, or should we just keep it running?
I might as well just keep it running.
Okay.
It's just 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks, Krista.
You bet.
See y'all shortly. Well, that's our 5 minutes. As soon as everybody is back, we can get started again. All right, I think we are ready to go. And on to ARPA funding with the tandem axle again coming up after. Dave, you had brought up the ARPA funding initially. Do you want to address that, or do you want to have Paul start out and address it, or where do we want to start?
Well, I guess I can throw my thoughts in there. As far as ARPA funding goes, I'm for using that before we borrow. I'm for using that for things we need before we spend it on things that we would like to have, just like we do in our own families. We're gonna need a roof, it sounds like, for our highway department. We realize that, I think we realize we need trucks. We need to keep the trucks going. And if we fall behind too far in the age, it's just gonna cost us a lot more money in the end. And who's ever sitting in these seats in the future are gonna have a harder time, harder decisions to make. So my recommendation is to use as much ARPA funds as we can to offset borrowing, or, you know, for the things that we need. And we've got $3 million slated in our capital fund for borrowing this next year. I would recommend we use that instead of the borrowing. And the majority of the rest of it, if not all the rest of it, we use for things that we need. And I realize broadband is something we would like in the county, that would be good to have throughout the county, but there's other forms of funding for that. Water quality issues are good. I mean, there's lots of good things to spend it on, but I think highway and borrowing. I'd feel the same way for the sheriff's department if there was a need there. I don't care what building it is. If a roof is leaking, I think that needs to be done, or the building's going to deteriorate. So that's where I'm at.
I'm in broad agreement, particularly with the budget deficit that we've currently got in highway. Supervisor Hartung.
How much ARPA money is available?
5.3, 5.4 million.
5.6.
5.6 million.
Yeah, I know that there is funding for rural broadband in the bipartisan infrastructure bill as well. So we should have some access to funds for that elsewhere coming up. Brian?
From what I understand, it's kind of wide open what you can use the ARPA money for now. Is that correct?
Not entirely, Supervisor Johnson. We can use it for income replacement, but there are still restrictions. We can't, for instance, simply put it in the bank. But for the kinds of capital projects that are being talked about by this committee, roads and equipment, yes, it is available. Chairman McCullough, may I make a suggestion to the committee?
Absolutely.
So during the break, Dustin and I had a brief conversation. There's a number of things we've talked about that, we need the money, the 80-20 projects for this year, the equipment that we would like to be able to purchase this year if we could, the equipment that we need to purchase next year. Dustin and I talked about refining even further the spreadsheet that he and Dan Nelson put together on the equipment to identify what is seen as absolutely critical, as opposed to, hey, it's something we need to address soon. What is critical? And if we pull all of that together in time for the special meeting that the Highway Committee may have, this committee would be in a position then to recommend to the full county board as part of its meeting, its capital improvement plan workshop on March 26th, a recommendation, whether it's entirely ARPA to fund those various things, or part ARPA, part borrowing, or part ARPA borrowing and levy. In other words, what I'm suggesting is the full range of fiscal issues for which we do not have money in the budget right now can be taken up by this committee at a special meeting and form a single and coherent recommendation to the full county board for funding.
That sounds broadly like what I would suggest. The one thing that comes to mind is one of the reasons we're talking about having a special meeting is the 80-20 money. We were talking about would have to be acted on by the county board before the workshop.
Yeah.
So we would have to split it at least that much, I think,
Yeah.
in terms of practical implementation.
Right. It could still, and you're absolutely correct. Appreciate that refinement. But that would still be something that would then have a consequence for the discussion by the county board at its March 26th workshop. If those monies are in fact requested by this committee and in fact approved by the county board at its March 16th meeting.
So in terms of plan, before we, I would like to have the discussion about the ARPA funding in general, but in terms of plan, does that sound broadly acceptable to the committee? Okay, Joe, you have a...
Yeah, I'd like to see something on paper and just throw numbers back and forth and can't remember which number was where. And
okay, so that sounds like a reasonable plan to have that ready for the special meeting and to get the sort of the broader plan done there. But in terms of using the ARPA funds in general, does anyone have anything they want to add to the discussion to what Dave has had to say, or we want to hold that, or Randy and then Brian?
Yeah, did we use some of the ARPA money already to balance for the highway this year, didn't we? I mean, so 5.6 isn't technically what's available, right? Or
no, 5.6 is available, Supervisor Prock. Now we were allocated 8.8.
Okay.
And we dedicated 3.2 for this budget to highway.
Yeah, with that under the earlier allowances, I think that was most of what we could easily do. But with the broadening of what the ARPA funds are available to do, we now have more options. Brian, you had a...
Yeah, I agree with Chair Bartlett's philosophy on using this money. We got to use it. We got to keep things, got to take care of the roof. We got to take care of the trucks. And I don't like to borrow money either, but that's just my thought.
I'm not a huge fan myself. Any further discussion on that, or doesn't look like it? So, do we need a resolution? I mean, do we need a resolution to do that, or since we're going to have the discussion about the specifics, do we defer the ARPA, any vote on what we recommend with the ARPA to the special meeting?
I would recommend deferring to your special meeting. And yes, it would come forward from that special meeting to the executive committee in the form of a recommendation for utilization of ARPA funds. That, once it gets through executive, would be in the form of a resolution for the county board.
Okay. Well, that would take E and G off of the immediate agenda. Tandem axle, I would like to bump the highway commissioner position hiring process discussion to the very end. Because I'm guessing that tandem axle truck budget carryover will be a much simpler discussion. Is the committee okay with that? Okay, so budget carryover. I don't know who's going to be addressing that. Is that Dustin? Is that you going to do that, or is that?
I guess I'll start it off, and then I'm going to rely on our finance department to take the lead on that. So yes, we do have one truck that we are still waiting. It is supposed to be here this week, is what we were told. One of our plow trucks that's coming from International that we will get here, and then we have to take it over to Indian Head to start getting the plow equipment put on it. So it should be here this week. I did have a rough cost on that. I believe it was like $159,000 for the entire truck, equipped and everything. We did have a trade-in value on this last truck with one of our older triaxles. So that is why it's a cheaper cost for this last truck. I guess I'll turn it over to Beata on how we proceed with the carryover on that.
Yes, let me turn my camera on. Yes, that's an excellent question. I've been doing a lot of researching too, and basically because the highway department is running a deficit, there is no money to carry forward per se. So our option is to charge it into 2022 funds, because like I said, we can carry over because of the deficit.
Okay, so we're looking for as a resolution.
22 budget, sorry.
Okay.
Yep.
So I presume what we're looking for is a resolution to move that item into the 2022 budget for covering the cost of the truck. Is that? Well, I mean, what action is the committee? Are we looking for from the committee?
Yes. So basically, in 2022, this truck was not in the budget. So this is an additional cost to the highway. So there is no carry forward. So to cover this truck would be a budget adjustment to allocate that money for 2022.
Okay, so what we're looking for is a resolution for a budget adjustment.
That would go again to executive, which acts as our finance committee.
All right. Well, we have the truck. We have to pay for the truck. I would say that we should probably go ahead and get that resolution on the table and voted for. Does anyone want to make the motion? Supervisor Maves?
So moved.
Supervisor Johnson seconds. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now then that goes on to exec and then the full board, I presume?
Yes, the recommendation is to executive to do a budget adjustment. Executive will put together a resolution. We'll actually have staff will have a draft resolution for executive at its March 9th meeting.
Okay. Well,
Yes,
that clears.
I will draft a supporting documentation to justifying and explaining the carryovers, including budget adjustments.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that clears that. And that takes us to Highway Commissioner position hiring process, which is, well, we will see how long this takes.
I'm gonna rely on Paul on that one.
Paul, Heather, who wants to start that?
I would recommend you let Heather weigh in here.
All righty.
Morning.
Morning.
I believe I submitted a staff report, and that was sent with the agenda. In reviewing it, there are 4 recruitment strategies, all of them feasible. It's just a matter of getting direction from the committee. The first one would be conducting a public search by a recruitment firm. I provided the costing there. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. We hire somebody, they come in, they navigate through the process. We pay them anywhere from $22,000 to $25,000. That is not the recommendation by any means, but it is an option. And certainly if you choose to explore it, we can. There is the option of a public search, just a standard recruitment like we do with any position vacancy where human resources navigates and provides guidance through the process, coordinates it, selects or receives the applications, shares them with the committee, and we go through that recruitment process. That does automatically cover a national search just because we are automatically hooked with Indeed and all of those sites. So it does get pushed out that way. Normally for this level of a position, we would say 30 days. I would recommend probably a 2-week process if that's the selected option. That is my recommendation simply because it does provide that fair and impartial look. This is a high level position. It's a visible position. I think best practice would be to do that search be it 2 weeks or 30 days. We could just do an internal search. And absent the public search, this would be my second recommendation. And that just gives an opportunity internally for anybody that we maybe don't know is interested in the position. It gives them an opportunity, especially since they do know that it's vacant. Maybe they're waiting for that opportunity. And then the committee has the opportunity to talk to anyone internally who may be interested. The last option is obviously a promotion. You do have someone who is in the interim role, and maybe you do know of other internals that we haven't heard about. So if there's somebody internally that you simply want to promote, that is within the parameters outlined within the ordinance, and that is certainly something, certainly something the committee could do. So provided my recommendation as I was talking, I can certainly answer any questions, but ultimately we just need direction from the committee on how you'd like us to proceed.
Thank you, Heather. I will open the floor to questions and discussion. Chuck?
Yeah, I guess I would go along with the recommendation of the public search. I think that way you get the widest exposure and just to see what's out there. So that's the one that I would go with.
Anybody else? We are remarkably quiet this morning. Dave, did you want to add anything?
I agree with Heather's recommendation and Chuck also.
Hearing no one else, do we want to look at a 30-day or a 2-week time horizon on that? Does one of the, my personal feeling would be a shorter time horizon, given where we are in terms of election and the potential reshuffling of this committee in the time coming up here shortly. Hopefully, not a lot of reshuffling, but we'll see.
And I'm sorry, I'm jumping in if I may, heading
Oh,
into
please.
the spring, I mean, Dustin's probably starting to feel pretty spread thin. It's been several months already. So in fairness to him, getting the position filled would probably be a welcome thing. Not to put words in your mouth, Dustin.
Yeah, I was going to say that before Heather did, and I totally agree. I've seen Dustin's desk and it's getting stacked up with things that he's getting behind on. So we need to make a decision sooner than later so we can get some help in that office someplace.
All right, so what I am getting from the relative quiet and what we've heard is that we're looking at the public search with a 2-week time horizon. Is that thumbs up generally? And if so, then if someone wants to make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Supervisor Maves, second by Supervisor Johnson on the 2-week time horizon. Public search. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. That was much quicker than I had expected. And I think that covers everything because the ARPA and Tandem Axle E&G will be deferred to the special meeting whenever that happens, either in 2 or 3 weeks. Considerations, resolutions, ordinances, nothing to it. Our next meeting date, regular meeting date will be March 9th, but we will be having a special meeting almost certainly before that. Does anyone else have anything they need to add or ask? Supervisor Johnson.
Yeah, I was just wondering if we could set that special meeting date, or is that out of line? So
I would be perfectly happy to set one. I guess it is largely determined by what Dustin thinks he can do in terms of timeline on finding projects to look at for us to look at.
I'm all about sooner than later. Like I said, I can compile the stuff as quickly as possible. I do want to try to act on these plow trucks as quickly as possible, just because they do only have certain slots available. And I believe if we delay that, potentially we are going to be potentially asking for longer delays on getting this I believe much needed equipment. So
do you think you can get everything together by the 23rd then?
I will get it done by the 23rd.
Does that work for everybody else? All right, then under item 9, next meeting, our next meeting date is the special meeting on the 23rd with the regular meeting on the 9th following after.
You want to specify the time, 8 or 8:30?
Oh, good point. Do you all want to get it done a little bit earlier since we don't have a transit meeting, or is 8:30 good?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock? Okay, 8 o'clock on the 23rd. Any further discussion, comments? Doesn't look like it. Well, in that case, we are adjourned, and I will see some of you later this afternoon and most of the rest of you in 2 weeks.